Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth session of the virtual reality seminar for lecturers. After 3 intensive and interesting days, we have the pleasure to share this last day with Luis Humberto Eudave Ramos, who is a member of the Faculty of Education and Philosophy at the University of Navarre. Elena will introduce himself, and he also will explain who is he inside the faculty. As I have said, after the 3 days of contents on virtual reality related to theoretical topics and practical applications discovered or broadcasting with the main device to enter this virtual reality. Today, we have the second session of a practical application on education that is brought by, as I said, Luis Eudave Ramos. I only want to remind two very important things just before Elena introduced Luis Humberto. That is that there is still open it is still open the survey in our webpage, that is e437.com. You will find the survey. Reached the 75 answers, but we need more. The more we have, the better will be the investigation. And the second advice I want to do is that please, those who haven't sent me the attendance sheet, fill it, please, because it's very important for the management of the project. I have several ones, but I've checked that there have been more attendance in these sessions than sheets that I have. So please, you can send me to my email directly. I write you the attendance sheet correctly, sign it and fill it, so we can demonstrate that people has entered and attended this seminar. That's all. I give the floor to Elena, and after this, Luis Humberto, welcome. Welcome to our seminar. Thank you very much for your participation. Elena, it's your turn.
Good morning, everyone. Today it's a pleasure to take into account with Luis Humberto Eudave, who is professor in the Faculty of Education and Psychology, and he teaches a subject called Virtual Reality in the Neurosciences, in which subject the students work how to implement the virtual reality in the research of neuroscience. So thank you for accepting to participate in this course, and this is your turn for explaining us your experience. Thank you very much, Luis.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, and I'm Luis. Nice meeting everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm more than happy always to talk about my experience using virtual reality. You'll find out that I'm very fond of it, and I've been recently using it for teaching, so I'm always happy to share my experiences. So I will share my slides, if it's all right with you. Okay, you can see my presentation, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I titled this presentation Teaching Virtual Reality for Undergrads, because that's what actually is happening. So I got the pleasure to get a whole course for virtual reality for the undergraduate program of the University of Navarra. And I also subtitled it as a generalist approach, because it's not very focused on any topic in particular, but it's meant to be more like an invitation to visual reality and also neuroscience as well. So it's not going to be super detailed, super difficult for the students, but it's meant to raise curiosity out of them at least. So as Belen and Asier mentioned, I'm a professor at the University of Navarra, specifically in the School of Education and Psychology. I've been there for 5 years now. But my background was originally in medicine, so I studied a medical degree a few years now ago, but then I quickly deviated the normal course of doctors and did a master's in cognitive neuroscience, because I've always been very interested in research, and especially in neuroscience. And after it, I pursued a PhD in neuroscience. And then, yeah, I started working as a professor at the University of Navarra. And I also wanted to mention that for the past 3 years, I've been doing research stays at the faculties of engineering in Germany, in Erlangen, and in Lisboa, in the Instituto Técnico Superior, where I've been doing some research in virtual reality labs. And I'm telling you all of this for introducing myself, but also to let you know that I've been working at all these stages with virtual reality. So during my PhD I did, during my current work I'm doing also, and also in my research stays, this has been my daily driver, so to say. So for example, during my PhD, I explored how we perform emergency maneuvers using virtual reality, and then I connected a bunch of wires in my participants. You can see myself here with a lot of connections to measure heart activity and brain activity and so on and so forth. And we did that using virtual reality. I have a current project undergoing in the university where we are exploring how people navigate through complex environments. So we have people moving through mazes such as this one, and this is an undergoing project that we are trying to get some more participants. And in Lisbon and in Germany, we've been doing more or less the same. So these are engineering faculty, so we've been trying to come up with full setup or devices that allow us basically to transform original psychological tests into virtual reality ones, because we believe that they will give us more information than just staring at a blank screen. Well, when you're in virtual reality, you may have already had this experience. You get to feel a lot more of things, and we can extract all that information. And yeah, we've been doing that in Lisbon and in Germany. And here, for example, you can see that we even got off the chair and got our participants walking around so that we can even translate it to real movement. So this is just to tell you that I like working with VR, and it's been in my experience and in my work for the last 8 years or so. So I like working on it. I find it fun. And what had been missing until now was finding a way to use it in my academic setting, in teaching, right? Because I, as I mentioned before, I am teaching at the School of Education and Psychology. Most of my subjects are in psychology, and I have some that might be suitable to use virtual reality. For example, I teach one that is called Attention and Perception, so that would be perfect, but the volume of students is quite high to even think of a method of trying to work with this just yet. But last year, I was offered by my dean of the school if I wanted to come up with a new subject that had to fill some requisites, and they were that they had to be an optional subject, that they had to be pointed towards students on their second or third degree year. and that they have to come from different disciplines, so not just psychology, but maybe also from medicine or economics or finance, from many disciplines, not just from psychology, since this was going to be an optional subject. And it was pointed towards home and incoming students, so it would have to be an English taught course. So, of course, given the introduction and my experience and what I like, I had to propose virtual reality in the neuroscience, which is the official title in the of my course. So I've been giving it since last year. This year, we just finished last week with the final exam. So yeah, it's been a good experience overall. And this is what I'm going to explain you in this 15-20 minutes about my experience during this course, the difficulties, the challenges, whether people like it or not. And I really hope you find it interesting. And also, please feel free to interrupt me at any point if my point is not being understood or if you just have any question. So if you go to Google and search for virtual reality in the neuroscience, Universidad de Navarra, it will point you towards the syllabus. Well, you have all the information available to everyone, so you can also go there and look for all the information that is going to be here. But this is the description that you will find in the syllabus. This is like the first thing that my students read whenever they are considering whether enrolling to this course or not. And I want to bring it up to this presentation because I think it explains pretty well what we are doing in this course. So if we focus on the first paragraph, and this is like my sales speech, since this is an optional course, I'm interested in attracting students. And thankfully, I don't have to make such of an effort because virtual reality is a thing that it's been going on for the past few years now. So it's kind of trendy. You see every now and then on the news, on Twitter, on social media. So it's out there, so students are aware of it. So and they find it interesting, especially if they haven't tried it yet. And with this, yeah, I want to sell the idea that yeah, it's important. It's something that it's becoming more common with every day. And this might I think they might relate it to the launch of specific products of specifically this year. I'm sure you have heard about Apple's new incursion into the VR arena with their device that is going to be called Vision Pro, which is the one on the left. And then on the right, we have the MetaQuest 3, which is the latest update of their series of devices, which was released a few months ago. And yeah, it's been a huge boom because these devices, at least the Quest 3 that is already out, is already quite nice and relatively cheap. So it's available for many, and you can see a bunch of videos in TikTok and in YouTube. So, I mean, it's out there and people are aware of it. Of course, the Vision Pro is not out there yet, but it will be very soon. And I think we are going to notice because as with any Apple products, they make sure that everyone knows about it. And I think this is going to be a very interesting device. So just for you to know that it's, I mean, I'm sure we know that it's a trending topic here, but I don't know if you've used ever Google Trends, which is, it gives you like statistics of interest over time of certain terms. And here, for example, you can see the interest that has been raised for Vision Pro in this past year. So it has a huge bump in interest, so it's out there in the conversation. The same with MetaQuest devices. It's been there for a couple more years because they were launched in 2018, I believe. But as you can see, they are still reaching the peak of popularity. So people are talking about it. And virtual reality in general it's a theme that it's been out there since 2016 when the parent company of MetaQuest, which is Oculus, was released. So I don't know if you remember, but these were like the actual very first consumer-grade devices that were available to the public, because pretty much before then, all devices were very, very expensive and not readily available. But from 2016 and on, when we see this huge bump in popularity with virtual reality term, yeah, well, it's stayed more or less there. So it's people are talking about it, and there are articles being written on, and it's out there. And just for the sake of comparison, I put another term that is just as popular, such as Spain. So people looking in Spain is as popular as people looking for virtual reality. So it's a popular term, and I think it's trendy. So this is like my justification, and I hope with this to attract my students into enrolling in this course. And then we jump to the next part of the description, which are more or less like the contents that we are going to review during this course. So if we read it, we can see that in this research-oriented course, students will learn the basic principles of virtual reality. So I think Asier mentioned that he has already explained some of the VR basics. So this is more or less what we go through with my students. So it's not an specialist course. We don't talk to the detail of how all sensors and virtual reality headsets work at the detail. But I want to make sure that they know that what are the main elements of the virtual reality headset and what the general idea of how it works, right? So there's a screen and there are some sensors that detect movement so that the movement feels real within the virtual experiences and something like that. So we go over very general stuff of how virtual reality works and how these virtual devices are able to make sensory information, visual or auditory sensory information, good enough that it will fool our system or brain into fall down into the 3VR illusions that allow us to feel like whatever we are seeing in virtual reality is real. So this is more or less why I explained it in relation with the VR basics. Again, it's super basic, it's introductory because people are coming from many places and I don't expect any base knowledge. So we just make a general overview of what we talk about here, just so that we are on the same page and that from there we can start building. And besides talking about the virtual reality basics, we also mentioned how it's becoming a fundamental tool when examining how our brain works. So this is where I start putting a little bit more of my work or my experience, my personal experience in research, in neuroscience research using virtual reality. So we explain again very generally in what consists the nervous system, so that we also are on the same page, how the brain works, how it is divided. Very generally, it's not an anatomy exam or anatomy exam whatsoever. It's very general. But what I like them to at least think about it is the idea of how does virtual reality interact with the virtual systems, right? So how does it fools us, right? What happens through the visual pathway, for example, that makes us think that are things that are actually happening, that they are actually moving, and not just some image like what happens when we stare at the computer screen, right? That we are not fooled into think that, okay, this is something real. It is not, it's just a screen with some things that are moving inside it. But with virtual reality, as I'm sure you are aware, it feels a little bit different. It feels a little bit more real. And we also discuss a problem in virtual reality experiences in general, whether it's for research, for entertainment, or for education, which is cyber sickness. So technology is not there yet, sadly. So if you haven't heard what cyber sickness is, it's just the simulation sickness that comes from using virtual reality. So certain people, not everyone, but about 20–30% of people tend to get nauseous or get headaches or eye strain when using virtual reality long enough. So this is a problem that we have to acknowledge, and we talk about this and how maybe we can get over it. But this is in general what we go on this neuroscience basics part of the course. And then finally, as I missed it on the first sentence, I said that this is a research-oriented course, of course, and we also talk a little bit of experiment basics. So again, this is all very basic, but it's just so that we know the more basic terms, such as what hypothesis is, what the conditions are, the experimental condition, the control conditions, groups, the concept of validity, when in a study can be cataloged as good science or bad science, because then on the practical side of it, we're going to go over some papers, research papers, so they have to know at least what the terms mean. And this is what we do in this. Again, super basic, just so that we have the same vocabulary, so to say. And and all of these contents are seen through the scope of many disciplines, including economics, medicine, psychology, education, and others. And this is because for these 2 years that I've had this course so far, I've had students from economics, from biology, from psychology, from education, from medicine, from pharmacology. So as you can see, they are quite diverse. So interest and knowledge about the area might be very different between these disciplines. So yeah, I have to take like a very generalist approach, as I mentioned in this talk's title, because I have to embrace them all. So I have to be very general and comprehensive. And then after we see all this theoretical kind of part of the course, then we can jump to the VR fun part of it, which is what might be the most interesting for you in this talk. So after we see these contents, neuroscience, experiments, and virtual reality basics, then what we do is go on hands-on sessions, where we allow the students to experience virtual reality in the context of research studies, right? So we build on the contents to get to this place, and then use cases of virtual reality as a tool for conducting scientific research. So what do I mean by this? So what we basically do is we take a few sessions where we do the following. We do something that I've called paper to VR assignments, where we make, I make my students read selected research papers. They are easy enough, accessible enough for everyone, so that once we know what we have to look for, they are manageable for everyone. They are not super complex experiments. They are relatively easy to understand and to follow along. So I have them read and go over it first individually, and then answer a questionnaire so that they can extract some information about the article. And they repeat the same thing, but in groups. They gather the information, their responses, and then answer again to this questionnaire, but just with the common answer for all the group. And then after we see this paper and they do this question and this activity in group, then we go like to the demo part of it, where they can actually get to experience the experiment that they were reading about earlier, right? So for example, in this paper, this is titled Virtual Superheroes Using Superpowers in Virtual Reality to Encourage Prosocial Behavior. So basically here, what the paper does to the participants is to make them fly around a city trying to save a small child, and see how this correlates to prosocial behavior offline when they are outside the virtual reality experience. So I have my students go through this experiment of flying around a city looking for a child. And so this is more or less the setup that I have during my classes. So I have a couple of computers running this application. And yeah, you can see one of the images of one of the students that is flying around there. And just for you to see what the students might see, it's something like this. So they start flying around the city. So they are moving through the buildings above and below, and they have to look for these children that they have to save. And I think this is interesting for them because they learned about the experiment, they learned about virtual reality, they learned about the many types of controllers. For example, in this case, they use their hand movements in order to move up, down, to one side or to the other. It responds to a specific arm and hand gestures, so they get to see that. And yeah, it's just a put in practice of what they had read before. And I think they find this interesting because I think it's a very different thing to just read about some virtual reality experiment, which might remain a little bit abstract, than actually getting to experience the whole thing, right? So they get to prove and test it and see where or what the actual participants from the original study went through. And we do this with all the students during this session. So yeah, this is what they go through. And more or less the program that I have for these activities is that on the first assignment, that is what I've called to these activities assignments. On the first one, in this first assignment is guided by me. So we go over a research paper but along with myself to retrieve all the information so that they know where to look for these pieces of information. I don't know where the hypothesis is, where the groups are, where the experimental conditions are, so that they can, because even though they are students from second or third year, some of them haven't seen an actual research paper. So this first exposure is useful for them to at least situate in the context of what a research paper looks like, and then make it easier whenever the rest of the assignments come from. So the first one is accompanied by me, and then I let them the rest to do them by themselves. So assignment 2, assignment 3, and assignment 4, there are other 3 different experiments where they get to do this individual and group experience during each of these sessions. And what I've done is that we do this consecutively, and then on the 5th day, I do what I called a demo day, where I gather all the experiments from the previous assignments that we just saw. I don't do that separately because it will take a lot of time to set up the actual experiment after assignment 1, after assignment 2, after assignment 3, after assignment 2. So what I've done, the solution that I've gotten to avoid me some trouble, was to just go over the experiments in the papers and on the activities first, and then do all the demos in one session on the 5th day. So this is more or less what it looks like. So again, this is another experiment where they get to experience, in this case, another experiment that is related to loss of biodiversity and perception of I forgot the term, like climate positions, whether you are against it or towards it, for example, right? So they get to see the experiences and so on and so forth. We received a visit from the university photographer a couple of weeks ago, so we got to get some nice pictures of my students using the virtual reality headsets. This is all taken with the permission, of course. And well, here you can see all the setups. So for these experiments, we used the MetaQuest 2 headsets, which are I have more of those devices. So just to standardize them, I use these MetaQuest 2 devices to all of them with the controllers. I use headphones so that the sound stays only to themselves to raise this sense of immersion. And yeah, what I do in the demo day is just have them going by turns, and then I have to set them up for everyone. So more or less going through all the experiments takes around 10-15 minutes. So I have to be like changing between people, making sure everything works. And then in the meantime, the students are taking notes on what is going on with after their experience and what they see from their classmates when they are performing, if they get to do what they were supposed to do, so on and so forth. So they are in the background also working on and retrieving information on this practice. So you see me there, and yeah, you can see there the students working there, and then some of my other students actually participating in the virtual reality experience. So yeah, so this is what I do. And this year I've done something different. And besides doing the 4 assignments and doing the 5th demo day, I took another day to do something that I called the experiment day. So for this session, I didn't tell any details to my students, but I prepared a very simple experiment that we could go all through in one single day. So what I thought of was a very simple study again. So where I studied, I retrieved information using an empathy questionnaire. It doesn't matter which one, it's just to measure how empathic the person is through this questionnaire. So everyone had to answer this. And then I divided my students into groups. One went to YouTube to watch a video that had some like empathic concern scenarios where they had to relate to the people that were sharing their stories. And then another group that went through a virtual reality experience also related to empathic concern. So this is a very nice experience where they get to embody into the body of a person, an Afro-American person that is being discriminated against in different phases of the year, when they're children, when they are adolescents, when they are adults. So they have to go through this experience. And then after both groups go either through the video or to the virtual reality experience, then I have them answer the same questionnaire again, just to see if there is a change in empathy. So as you can see, this is not super scientific and not very rigorous, but it's just a very simple exercise for them to see what's going on. So we do this, And this is what happened a couple of weeks ago, where I managed to do with 6 people at the same time. So they are all wearing all the headsets that I had available for the course. And I set them up with the virtual experience inside them. The rest of them were doing watching the video on YouTube. And what they saw was something like this. So for example, when they were enacting the child, they were playing with other children in a kindergarten, and they were being scolded by the teacher because this is part of like the discrimination part of the experience. And then when this person grows up, he goes to the street, but he gets wrongfully detained by the police. And I know this might look a little bit clunky in this animation, but when you use the virtual reality headset, it feels really, really strong, like, because it looks imposing. You get to go down, and they shout at you, and it's a very really strong experience. It does what the virtual reality experience is supposed to do, right? Like to make you feel like you are inside of them. So all along this experience, my students are interacting with the environment. So for example, when the police comes, they tell them to raise their hands, and the experience won't continue until they raise their hands. So they have to do it. Also, when they're playing with the children, they have to sit down, and it doesn't continue until they sit down, and then they have to throw these Lego pieces to the other children until they continue. So it's very, very immersive, the experience, and they actually liked it. So they get to see that, and then they did the questionnaire again when they were done with the activity. And then I had everything prepared so that I could extract the results from the questionnaires automatically and make some statistical tests to see if there's a difference. And luckily, I wasn't expecting that. There was a significant difference after the virtual reality experience when compared to the baseline. So this was very nice for the students because they got to see themselves with their own data what happened after trying this out. So they were doing the test, playing with the virtual reality experience, answered the test again, and then seeing that there was an actual effect when compared to the other condition. So I got good feedback from this because they said that, okay, now we are seeing actually how it is done. And even though this is a very simplistic and easy example, I think this is useful for them, at least at these stages, that they are not researchers yet and might not be even interested in this, but at least this raises their curiosity. So this happens in the experiment day. And then I have another special, yes? Oh, sorry. Okay, I will continue. So besides these sessions, I do another one that is related to the creation of real world applications. So I don't know if you're familiar with Unity 3D. Unity 3D is what we call a game engine that in general, it is used to build 3D applications. So it's what video games are built upon. So developers use this to create anything that has to do with 3D. And for virtual reality, since we use 3D, is what we use. So I don't expect my students to know how to do this, because for this, you have to study a lot, even maybe a degree to get to do this. But it's just an exposure so that I can get them to see there and familiarize with what happens. So I prepare everything beforehand. So I create a very simple environment where there are some objects that they get to manipulate. And my objective here is that they just follow along. I give them a document like the one that you can see on the right that has all the steps that they have to follow. They are very detailed, that they can do it by themselves. They can even do it without my presence there. So it's made very easy so that they can get this actually running. So they open the application, they load the program, and they get to play around with it. For example, I put them some objects in the environment. So I make them big or make them smaller. I make them build some stairs so that they can then climb the stairs and jump from the stairs, so that they can get that this is actually, I mean, it's interesting, and you can do it if you are interested enough and following and doing some tutorials. So this is just another exposure, which they enjoy. So it looks something like this. So for this, I do smaller groups of 3 or 4, depending on how many we are. And what they do is they are interacting with this game engine where they see the objects in the environment. And they are basically 2 roles. There's like the role of the, so to say, developer, which is following the instructions and making the edits and modifications. And then there is a tester who is another student who is telling this developer if things are working okay or not. And then they have to accomplish a set of goals that are within this document that I sent them. And it's just basically to play around with it and just to not to be scared of these applications which seem as at first inaccessible to people who are not in the engineering field, such as myself. I didn't study formally this, but just by playing with it and I got to learn to do at least some of the basic stuff. So they get them to create these virtual reality scenarios in these very small groups. And last but not least, the last activity, it's just like a wrap-up of everything that they have learned throughout the courses by joining the theoretical part of the course, the learning through the assignments and playing with experiments, which is to develop their own hypothetical VR research study. So I make them do a very short proposal. I give them the guidelines of what this has to include, but they already know kind of what they has to include because we've already been going through that through the assignments and the experiments. So this has been very rewarding because I've seen a lot of interesting proposals coming from many disciplines. And some of them, despite being very, very young and not very into this, they get some nice ideas and some nice ways to solve the solution using virtual reality. And this happens during the last sessions of my course. So with this, I intend to grab the knowledge that they have acquired. And I think from my experience and the feedback that I've got, that it kind of works. So this is what I've done, and this hasn't come with challenges and difficulties, and I think this might be also interesting for you because if you are thinking of using virtual reality, there are some things that you might be already aware, and if not, it's always good to share this information to avoid problems in the future. So I can divide them in non-technical and technical difficulties. So in the non-technical part of it, the diversity is a good thing for me. Having people from all fields and disciplines is good, but it also makes it a little bit harder to come up with the appropriate content. I have to find something that might be interesting for all of them and accessible in a knowledge kind of way. So this has been proven a challenge. And a big challenge that it looks rewarding at first sight. So on the last year that I started, I had 9 students. So it was very controlled. It was very neat packed, very, very nice. But this year I got the good news that I had 23 instead of 9. So of course I was excited because it was getting traction, the course. But this means that I have to prepare more materials, and then I have to prepare more devices to be ready. And this, as I will explain in a minute, it proves a real challenge. And another thing that I have found as a difficulty maybe is that there aren't really a lot of teaching resources specifically devoted to the teaching of virtual reality. So I found some syllables and some ideas that some people had spread around the internet, but there aren't any resources that people can get some inspiration or can use to that. So you have to pick stuff from there, from another place, and then try to join it and make sense of it together. At least in my experience, or at least for the purposes that I had for this course. So these are like the non-technical that are maybe very specific to my use case, but the technical might be more relevant for everyone that is using virtual reality and use it in education. In general, virtual reality setup is very time consuming. So it will take you a long time on preparation, of course, that's a given. But when you are doing live demos, like I did with experiments and with the Unity session, the setup is very time consuming. You have to be, at least I had to be 1 hour before the actual class to make sure that everything works. And if it doesn't, in case of technical difficulties, unluckily, there's no one that can help me, not even the IT department of my universities. And it's normal because they are not used to dealing with virtual reality. So this is something that we have to be aware that in case that something bad goes on, we have to be the ones that have to solve it, because there's probably not going to be anyone around that is going to be familiar with the headsets even, and then of course not aware of the difficulties that might arise from using and connecting devices between each other with the computer and so on and so forth. So we have to be really prepared for this. And the thing is that we have to, because always something goes wrong. There's always something that happens. I don't know, that it disconnects from the Wi-Fi, that it runs out of the battery, that the button of one controller doesn't work. So there's also something that is going to go wrong, especially as there are more devices and more students participating. So yeah, you have to contemplate this. In the case of a standalone VR, this is when you are just using the virtual reality headset and not connected to a computer. It takes a lot of preparation, so you have to update all the devices, install all the relevant materials, programs that you need, calibrating all the devices, testing, making sure that they are charged. And this is not difficult per se, but when you have several devices and you have to make sure that everything runs and you are just doing it by yourself, it gets time consuming, to say the least. So these are like the 6 devices that I used for the experiment day that we did a couple of weeks ago. And as you can see by the window on the back, I had to stay quite long the night before to make sure that everything works, so that on the next day. And during the demo, when working with these standalone devices, if there are a lot of devices, you need to seek help, because it will be impossible to be trying to help and attend everyone at the same time. So I luckily had a teaching assistant for this course to help me to deal with problems. But then there's another problem, because this person has also to be a little bit knowledgeable about how to deal with these problems. So you have to teach them what happens if something goes wrong, what to do, how to restart, and so on and so forth. So more time to the bucket. And in the case of using virtual reality headsets connected to the computer, which was the case for me in 2 sessions, there's a common problem that you might be aware already, that in order to do this, you need a very powerful device. And in the case of my university, there aren't any available to do this. So we have to buy the actual computers to run the programs that we needed in the virtual reality headset. So it's money that we have to set apart only to do this. And during the demo, something that I found out this year is that we can only connect 2 devices at the same time, because there's Wi-Fi interference that makes everything go wrong. So if you are thinking of doing this, beware that if you're using wireless connection, because I was using wireless connection for practicality issues, you can only use 2 at the same time. So these are some of the things that no one told me about, but I found out on the go. And sharing these experiences, I guess this is useful in case you are thinking of doing something like this. But in general, the idea is that I think it's rewarding, but it requires some effort and preparation beforehand. And with this, I end my presentation. I hope I got to showcase a little bit of what I do. Again, this is not a lot of content, a lot of experience, because I've been doing this just for a couple of years. But maybe this will show you a little bit of how it might work if you decide to use virtual reality. So thank you, and I'm happy to hear comments and questions.
Fantastic, Luis. Awesome. Congratulations for your presentation. Very inspiring, very complete. And I just had to say, well, I have a lot of questions, but the first thing I need to say you that is that if you need some help with your glasses or devices, don't call IT services, call me, because maybe I can be more helpful than IT services than okay, I have also a little bit experience, and we are sharing the same campus, we are at the same place. So if you have difficulties, maybe I can help you with the glasses, the connection, because I've experimented also the same issues, the problems that you have shown us. You need a powerful graphic card in your device, in your laptop, or in your iMac. I use the iMac. It's very difficult to link the glasses to UNAV Guest or to UNAV. There are problems with IP permissions also.
Yes.
But, it's very difficult. That's one of the reasons that I've done this. I've done my presentations in my studio, because in my studio, my office, I am not at the university right now. I don't have any problems of this nature. But I agree with you that it's rewardless, because we're experiencing new ways of thinking, of drawing, of visualizing things that we never seen till now. I have a couple of questions, but I think just before my questions, Beatriz raised and Noemi raised. There are several raised hands, so I give them the floor in order to make the questions.
I don't know, Beatriz, you want to speak or?
No, please go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
First of all, Luis Humberto, thank you very much for your presentation. I think it has been very clear. I like it. And just only one question about how many hours you need to put in practice all the process. I mean, the first assignment, the second one, the demo day, and the experience day. Do you have used all the term, all the 3 months, or how many hours you need to do all the experience?
So this is a 3 ECTS credit course. So it's 1 class per week. So it's more or less, I think it accounts for 12, 13 classes for the semester.
Okay, and the last one, if we are thinking about buying some glasses, the question is very simple, but I have no experience in this area. We must buy a specific type of glasses, or you can buy one and you can use to do different experiments or different activities. Or there is one glass in a concrete for one activity, another glass different for another activity.
So in general, you can do most of things with any kind of glasses. So it will all boil down to if you have a specific use for the headset. So for example, if you just want to show pre-made programs or experiences, any device will work. So for example, I don't know if you saw the white ones that I show in my pictures and my videos, and I think they are the ones that Asier has. They are the Quest 2, which are very affordable. They are very cheap, and they are a very nice introduction, at least for the first time, to try out and see if it works and how you can get to it. Other more expensive devices, what they have are better resolution, screen resolution, so it looks a little bit better, and they have more sensors, so you get more information in case that's important. But in my case, for example, for the whole course, the MetaQuest, the cheap one, is more than enough, because what I wanted for them to see was these pre-rendered experiences, so I didn't need to extract anything in particular. So to answer your question, it depends if there's a special use case, but in general, with any device is fine.
Thank you very much.
The Apple glasses, the Vision Pro, are going to cost 3,000 euros, more or less. For me, it's very expensive. And I think these are more related to augmented reality than to virtual reality, isn't it, Luis? Because what I've seen in the demonstration from Apple, and if you go to the webpage of Apple, you will see that the Vision Pro are more linked to the augmented reality, unless they have prepared also the glasses for the virtual reality. I don't know, because I haven't seen this virtual reality possibilities on the Apple Pro. The MetaQuest 3 cost, as Beatriz knows, more or less 300 euros. The 2 300, and the 3 500. I'm expecting to prove the MetaQuest 3, but for me, I think that the proper question is, what kind of applications do you use because the problem or the challenge is not about the glasses, because the glasses are very affordable, as Luis has said, but on the application is the challenge. How do you create by Unity or Unreal Engine, or how do you contact or work with teams of programmers, and how do you create the applications that you need to fix or to link the classes with the field of knowledge that you want to teach in? For example, I've seen that you mentioned economic application of the glasses. I yesterday shown, or on Tuesday, I shown the possibility of programs like Gravity Sketch to create graphics or statistical data graphics in three-dimensional that allows you to increase the possibilities of analyzing graphics. But I haven't found, for example, in the MetaQuest menu applications for economics than more applications for healthy, for stress, for mainly for design or for travel, etc. So what is your experience? This is my question. What is your experience, Luis, on the searching applications for your course or for different fields of knowledge?
Well, so there are not many, and they are not readily available. So actually, it was maybe one criteria of which papers I use. So I read some papers, and then I looked if they had the materials available somewhere online, and then I downloaded them, and I saw if I can reconstruct them and play them over. So this is a trial and error kind of thing. So you have to look for them. They are not super exposed. In my case, since it's research, there are a lot of papers that make everything public and available. So in that case, it's fine. For other use cases, I'm not sure how it would work, but I mean, you have to search for it. It's not very evident. And Noemi, just one thing. If you are thinking of buying a headset, maybe you can also guide yourself in buying one of the big brands, because the smallest brands are disappearing slowly, because Apple and Meta are monopolizing everything, and they are making the others disappear. So in the past 3-4 years, there had been released some headsets that were actually very nice, but they are going to be discontinued because they cannot compete with Facebook and with Apple.
Yeah, correct. Beatriz?
Good morning. First of all, Luis Humberto, congratulations for this excellent, outstanding presentation. Very useful for us, I must say. And it is a very good piece in the puzzle of the virtual reality course for professors the University of Navarre is delivering this week. So congratulations for your contribution. This course, well, the project, as you know, this is a European Union project, and it is entitled Education for Technological Literacy and Inclusion, okay? And as we know, in any public money, everything has to be outsourced, open source, okay? Because everything has to be published and everything has to be available from the inclusion perspective, okay? Obviously, we are working with Meta glasses, and because they are the ones that are operating now, at least in Europe. And but I do have the feeling that maybe we could move on to open source. Okay, the Indian partners did deliver a course on coding for data science, and we employed Python. Okay, everything was coded in Python because Python is open source. And also because in the big data studies nowadays we use Python. So and because in the in every single public money funded project, you need to use open source software, and everything has to be available online. And this is a must in any European Union project, okay? So my question is the following. Considering that one of the purpose of a project is inclusion, and considering that we are being funded by a European Union project, do you have any experience on open source software for virtual reality? Thank you.
Yes, I guess I could say I have. So I have, I mentioned one of these projects that I'm running at the University of Navarra. So this is a project of, I don't know if you are familiar with what a register report is. So,
excuse me?
Are you familiar with what a registered report is?
Can you write it down, please? Sorry for this.
Yes.
Yes, I raised this question because I think it can be helpful, to deliver outputs that fulfill the purposes of the project, okay?
Yeah. So
obviously, we will use all the MetaQuest materials because they have a quasi-monopoly in the market, as you already mentioned. But we also need to include open access, open source materials, because this is a European Union funded project, if I may. So I just wanted to get to know whether we can move a step ahead in the field of inclusion. Maybe for a European citizen, 300 euros or 500 euros, not money, but maybe for an Indian one, it is. So I think we need to move on to the global paradigm, okay, in which we make ensure accessibility, technological inclusion for any middle class person worldwide, globally, if
yes.
I may.
Yeah, Beatriz, I just sent a link through the chat menu to my GitHub. So in my GitHub, I've made all the things that I do publicly available to everyone. That includes VR projects. So for example, anyone can just go to GitHub and download the 2 or 3 projects that I have worked on, and they can just download everything and they want and play with it and destroy it or create something new out of it, whatever they want. So it is there. And I mean, this is what I do with my experimental, as part of my experimental design. It has to be everything pre-registered and open and transparent to everyone.
Yes. Considering that we are delighted about your presentation, but obviously we are very much aware of inclusion, obviously.
Yeah, I agree.
Technological inclusion globally.
Yeah.
Not Eurocentric, if I may.
Yes. And this has been useful for me as well, because I've been able to learn how to do much things because other people have been sharing it online. So if we don't do this, we are just limiting knowledge and expansion of it. So yes. It is something that we do and that I do.
Okay, so lovely. Well, yes, my previous colleagues told you we are delighted with the presentation. So we will organize a multiplier event here in Bilbao, and obviously you are invited. So congratulations for your presentation.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if there are no more questions, thank you. I repeat my gratefulness to you, Luis. I'm waiting for share with you experiences at the university. I will contact you as soon as possible, and I think it's the perfect final for this 4th day seminar lessons for lecturers on virtual reality. So all the material is recorded. It's going to be uploaded in the R43 webpage, and please remind all the people that can fill the survey, that will be welcome. This is all from me, and waiting the next seminar, tomorrow's minutes of meeting at 9, and thank you very much for your attention and patience during these 4 days.
So thank you, Luis Humberto, for the fantastic session we had today.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Luis, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone. My pleasure.
So see you tomorrow at the monthly meeting. Bye-bye. See you at
See you
9 o'clock
tomorrow.
Spanish time.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
So tomorrow, thank you so much.